Okay, and then we can get started. So welcome everybody to Strategies and Techniques, Part 4. Today, this session is on automating SAP Fiori with UiPath. I'm Diana Gray. I'm the Community Marketing Manager for UiPath Americas. And if you want to go to the next slide. So today we have Pankaj and Umesh with us. And Rahul has been at most sessions, so I'm not sure if he's joining a little later, but Pankaj, do you want to introduce everybody?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Diana, thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Pankaj Banka. I'm co-founder and CEO at the Silicon Partners and a two-time UiPath MVP for SAP. And with me, I think Rahul could not join. Maybe he's busy, but Umesh Dutt Sharma, I'll just have him introduce himself quickly. Umesh.
Sure, Pankaj. So, hi everyone. My name is Umesh Dutt Sharma, and I'm currently working as a RPA technical lead with the Silicon Partners.
Next slide.
Awesome. So these sessions are really developed for developers and other target audiences like, leaders of companies, the CX levels. But basically what we're here to do is to share some of the technology with you. We're really here to engage with you on topics of interest. In this case, it's SAP, but if you have any other topics you'd like us to go through with you, please just let us know in the chat. Or if you want to reach out to me at diana.gray@UiPath, I'm happy to take those as well. And if you want to go to the next slide. So this is our last session for this series. We're going to be running another series on SAP in the new year. It will be part 5 through 8. So you can always join this chapter, and I'll put that in chat as well, just to make sure that you get any announcements of the future events that we host. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to you, Pankaj.
Yep. So yeah, so we are doing an 8-part series on SAP, and then feel free to reach out to us if you want to deep dive into any of these sessions. We have already done 3 of them, which were definitely a huge success in terms of audience and engagement. So this is the fourth part of the 8-part series, and then we'll be doing a 4-part series again after the forward conference of UiPath, which is next week. So we'll be posting everything on the community webpage, on LinkedIn. Feel free to register and spread the word among your colleagues. So, and as TSP, we are a SAP and UiPath Gold partner. So we specialize in SAP automation using UiPath. So that's why we are doing this series to basically um, increase awareness of SAP automations using the UiPath platform. And then we have done many projects around those. So we'll be sharing our experiences, what we have done in terms of SAP automation. So, and from an agenda standpoint, Umesh, if you can go to the next slide, definitely we'll introduce what SAP Fiori is. We have done the first part was using the SAP GUI. Now with the new S4 HANA platform of SAP. SAP has introduced Fiori as their front end. So we'll be talking about what Fiori is high level, and then also the UiPath capabilities around SAP Fiori, some best practices. Umesh will go over some live demos, and obviously there'll be a Q&A session as well in the end where you can type your questions in the chat or unmute yourself to ask those questions. Umesh, next slide. So with that, I'll just hand it over to Umesh to take it from here. Umesh.
Sure, Pankaj. So, in the earlier sessions, we discussed about SAP GUI and how we can automate this. In today's session, we will be discussing about SAP Fiori and how it is different than the SAP GUI and how uh, the automation can be done using UiPath on SAP Fiori. Right. So, in the last session, we explained that SAP GUI is a desktop application where we can access uh, SAP transaction codes on SAP GUI and then perform the steps that are needed based on the business steps or the process that needs to be automated. and it requires certain details to be configured in order to access the SAP system, right? And that includes the SAP application server IP address, instance number, system ID, and in case sometimes we need a router string as well if you are accessing it through other outside of the network, right, or something like that. But so there were a lot of dependencies when we do the SAP automation in using SAP GUI, because the scripting has to be enabled at the server side as well as on the client side. But when we talk about SAP Fiori, right? So SAP Fiori is an application which is accessible on web browsers, and we can perform the same set of steps that we do on SAP GUI. In addition to that, there are additional, I would say, features that are available on SAP Fiori, which is a part of S4, and the benefits of using SAP Fiori is something that it's platform independent. We can access it on any of the devices, including tablets, smartphones, or desktops, because it can be accessible on the web browsers, right? So that's why it is really easy to access SAP Fiori, irrespective of the device that we are using. Coming to the next step, which is SAP Fiori, the capabilities and uses. So SAP Fiori it really makes the navigation that we do on the browser, right, very easy as compared to the SAP GUI. And it's very user friendly. When we talk about, let's suppose if someone is working on SAP GUI, they need to have some technical knowledge of the application. But when we are working on SAP Fiori, when we are accessing it on SAP on any of the browser, it becomes very easy to access or do the steps, because um, let's suppose if you want to do create a sales order, right, or maybe if you want to change a sales order, you can either type in the text itself in the search bar, or you can also type in the transaction code, which we usually use in SAP GUI. So you have a convenient to access process or do some steps in SAP Fiori, and uh, so it makes it really easy to access certain parts of SAP in SAP Fiori. And again, it's the response time in SAP Fiori is real time, because it's all renders on a web page, so it's real time. And in addition to the usual SAP access and business processes, we can also create graphs and table and charts on SAP Fiori for reporting purposes if needed. So that's about it. Talking about the automation part of Fiori. Uh, so there are some prerequisites before automating the SAP Fiori. Uh, to start with, we need to have a web browser extensions installed on the UiPath Studio that we usually use to do the development. And you can see this option under Tools and UiPath Extensions. We have different web browsers that are available for Chrome, Edge, and Firefox. Extensions are available. So in case you are using Chrome, you need to install the Chrome extension in order to do the automation on Chrome browser. And then once it is done, you can simply automate any steps that you follow or do on Chrome browser, which can include SAP Fiori access as well. Right. So this is the first prerequisite. The other one is we need to have a UiPath.UI automation.activities package installed on UiPath Studio process. Whenever we create a new process, this package has to be installed, and it comes by default if you're creating a process from a template. And under this, since we are doing a UI automation, so it is very similar to the automation that we usually do on any of the browser, right? But there are some recommendations and some uh, best practices that we should be following. So we should always be using simulate type whenever we use a type into activity. The use or the benefit of this is it can interact with the web elements that are available on the web page or web browser in the background as well. So even if the screen is not in the foreground, the bot will be able to click or type in the background itself. So simulate type for type into activity and simulate click for click activity is recommended. I'll show you where we can do this. And the other one is table cell scope activity. And so this particular activity can also be used for SAP Fiori table automation, because in SAP Fiori, there are some transactions where some tables are also rendered, right? So for that specific automation step, we can use table cell scope activity, and it makes the data extraction and the other steps really easy using this activity. Right. So as you can see, the UiPath.UiAutomation.activities comes by default whenever you create a process. I'll also show you once we do a demo that what is this package and how we can install it if it is not there already. Right. So coming to the next slide, which talks about best practices. So since we are doing a UI automation on web browsers, so it is a bit so in the previous sessions we have discussed the best practices about SAP GUI. Since it was a desktop based application, there was some slight addition in terms of best practices, but most of them will remain the same. So to start with, once again, we'll quickly go through the best practices. I'll also show you how to implement these best practices in the automation to create a robust and a scalable solution, right? So talking about the first one, which talks about developing the reusable components and workflows. And when we talk about reusable components in UiPath Studio, there can be various types of reusables that we can create, including workflow files or XAML files, I would say, which can be invoked anywhere in the workflow or the bot that we create, wherever there are some steps which needs to be called again and again. We can just simply drag and drop the workflow file, and we can just simply use the same workflow again and again. The other part of could be using libraries. So you can create libraries if you're working on a larger project or a complex project, so that the library can be deployed on orchestrator or shared with the team members. And then they can just simply make use of library in their code or any other processes where you see something can be reused, right? Like the login part can be reused. So you can make a library for that. So we'll cover how reusable components can be used in a workflow. We'll cover that in the demonstration. The next is using dynamic selectors. Since we are dealing with UI or UI automation, selectors become really important when we create a robust solution. So the selector has to be dynamic, so that even if the application, we see any slight variation in the application, the selector should work fine. There are some cases where it might not work if there are any major changes, but we should be focusing on making the selectors dynamic as much as possible. And when we can also use combination of fuzzy selectors or uh, strict selectors, or maybe CV or image-based selectors. So I'll show you that in the demo, like how we can use dynamic selectors and combination of different technologies that are there. Leverage built-in SAP activities. So since we are using SAP Fiori, there are some activities from SAP automation, from SAP GUI automation that can also be used in here, including the table cell scope. I'll show you that, but we are not using it in the demonstration. But I'll maybe show you like what are those activities that can be reused. Implementing retry mechanism wherever you see that something where you can see any unexpected or expected behavior of application where something can work after a retry. So we should put retry mechanism there in case if the web page is not loading and it is taking some time. In such cases, putting a retry mechanism really helps, or element exists as well. Um, Similarly, with try catch, we can catch any exceptions that we can expect at any given step, and we don't want the workflow or the bot to fail. We can implement try catch, and it is always recommended to catch it and throw exceptions if you are aware that this is expected. Maybe you can throw a business exception, and if you don't want the bot to fail, you can just simply continue, or simply just use the try catch and retry mechanism as much as possible to make more robust and scalable solution. Object repository, definitely this is always recommended when we are using or doing any UI automation. So the benefit of using object repository is we can capture the UI elements that can be reused at any given point of time in the automation. So we don't have to capture the same element again and again. And so this is similar to a reusable component, since reusable component are at a bigger level where we have workflows or libraries. But object repository is something which is at the element level or application screen level, where we can use the UI elements at any given point of time. So we'll discuss that as well in the demonstration. And the last part is comprehensive logging. So logging always help us to debug any exceptions that might have happen, or keep track of how the bot is working, and what is the route that the bot is taking based on the business rules that are applied. And so using logging definitely helps in debugging as well as keeping track of how the bot is running. So with that, we'll quickly jump to the demonstration of the bot, and then we'll also see how SAP Fiori can be automated. And I'll quickly uh, show you. Let me just. All right. So as you can see, I already have a process or a demo created for you to show how SAP Fiori can be automated. But before starting that, let me just show you where you can find the extension. So this is where you can just simply find and install the extension which is needed for the browser that you're using. Right. Once the extension is installed, you can create a new process. And then whenever you create a new process, you can just simply have these many activities installed by default. Right. And this is the one which will have all the UI automation activities that are needed in order to automate SAP Fiori. So let me just show you. Let's quickly go through the demo first, and then I'll show you. I'll share. Maybe let's quickly go through the object repositories and how this workflow is designed. Right. So if you see right on the right hand side, we have object repository section. This is where we have created application. So this is the application that you see. And under this application, we have web elements or screen where we have change outbound delivery, create billing documents. So these are different screens. And then under each screen, we have some web elements. All right. So these are all the elements that has to be created as a part of object repository. So application, screen, and web elements, right? And you can see that we have click or get text or type in and everything else. So the benefit of using object repositories at any given point of time, let's suppose if I want to navigate to this page and then perform some steps, I won't have to capture it again. I can just simply drag and drop the activity from here, and then this will be all done. Right. So this is the benefit of using SAP, this object repository. And as a part of demonstration, I'll quickly run this bot, so which is the order to cash bot, and I will run it in the debug mode so that you will be able to see it will highlight all the elements that the bot is performing, and it will give you an idea like how it is navigating from one screen to another, right? Before that, I'll also show you the input data that the bot will be using in order to uh, in order to cache process workflow end to end. So this is the input file that the bot will be using, where we have material and the customer reference and a sold to party and all of the required information which are needed. Right. So I'll run the bot in the debug mode so that we can see how the bot is performing all the steps that are needed. Meanwhile, feel free to share any questions that you might have on the group chat and the teams on the Zoom chat, and we will be answering your questions. So the bot has closed the Chrome browser, and it has started processing. It has relaunched it basically. So before starting the application, it cancel out, kills all the processes which are needed in the automation so that it start fresh. As you can see, the bot has logged in and it is also highlighting all the web elements where it is clicking or maybe capturing or identifying those elements, right? So as a part of this demo, the bot is clicking on the create sales order and it is using the T code VA01, and it is navigating to the screens as you can see, and it is typing in the information that are needed to create a sales order. So this is the bot doing everything is in live. So it is using the data that was provided from the Excel file, and it is doing the order to cash process automation end to end. So I have used a breakpoint, and you can see so the bot will be stopped at this particular step, right? If I just simply click on continue, it will continue to do the automation. So breakpoint can be used for debugging or making sure that the bot is running fine when you are doing running it in debug mode. Again, we have another debug where the bot is stopping and then it is making sure that yeah, everything is working fine. So when the bot runs in production on any actual testing environment, uh, since it will not run in the debug mode, it will just simply run end to end without any interruption. And it won't even highlight everything like how it is doing in the debug mode. So the purpose of highlighting it is to understand the steps that the bot is performing. As you can see, the standard order has been saved, which has 1998 number. As a next step, the bot will again go to the app finder and search in for the next key code, which is to create outbound delivery for the sales order which was created. And you can see that every time the bot navigates to the home page or it basically click on the app finder. So clicking on the app finder from the home page can be one of the reusable, right? Because that is something the bot will do again and again whenever switching back and forth between different transaction codes. So that is why the app finder will be the one where we can have a reusable component created. I'll show you. I'll once the demonstration is completed, I'll share how this reusable is created for app finder. So the delivery is created as a next step. Again, the same reusable is being used where the bot clicks on app finder once it lands on the home page. Now it will change the outbound delivery. once the delivery number is generated. So it will use the number, outbound delivery number, which was generated, and it will change it. So it has been updated. It will again navigate to the home page. Again, the same reusable is being used, where it navigates to the home page and click on App Finder again, and then again type in the transaction code. Now the bot is creating a billing document as a part of this process. The billing document is created, and now the bot will sign out from the browser. Okay, so yeah. So the automation is completed, and you can see we have a lot of logs being generated at each step, where we can see the bot has processed wherever it has clicked or typed in, right? All the information is there in the logs, the delivery date, the amount it has entered, the standard order that was generated, the delivery number which was generated, and what is the material document and the billing document that was generated, right? So all the information is available in the logs, and it really helps to debug the process. And same goes with whenever the bot runs in production. If anything fails, retry mechanism as well as the try catch definitely helps to make sure that the exceptions are being caught, right? So as you saw that the bot ran end to end, and it created uh, it processed the order to cash flow. So now let me just give you a walkthrough of the structure and the best practices. So as you can see, we already covered the input file. Under framework, we have a SAP folder where we have different workflows that are there, right? So as a part of best practice, we should always be segregating different workflows based on the applications that are being used, right? And then the naming convention of the XAML files should not have any spacing or any special characters. It should have a name which is well defined, which can help you understand what the XAML file or that workflow file is doing, right? And as you can see, so this is the one where navigate to tile from App Finder. So this is the reusable, which is definitely helps to uh, minimize the number of steps in the bot that you create. I'll share where this particular navigate to a tile from App Finder is being used. So for this, I can just simply click here and then select find references. And then we can see where this workflow is being used. So this workflow for navigate to tile from App Finder is used in all the 4 workflows that we have, where it create the billing, it create outbound delivery, it creates sales order, it does the post goods issue, right? Since the same workflow is being used in all the other workflows because it's a reusable, right? So we don't have to create it again and again in for all of them. We can just simply create one workflow and then use it. Similarly, we can create a library as well for a larger or complex project where we can have as a part of a package if it is deployed on orchestrator, right? So that's about it. And let's quickly uh, see how we can capture the elements on a web page. So if you are not familiar with web automation, right? Maybe I can show you, I'll share how we can capture the web elements on an SAP Fiori application. So just give me a minute once I log in on SAP Fiori, and then we can get started with the next how we can basically capture the elements and then automate any application on browser. Meanwhile, I'll take up the questions that we have on chat.
Yeah, I think you have the one question. Do you want to answer that now? Or you want to wait? Oh, I see you have more than one.
Oh, all right. Just
Yeah.
give me a minute. Meanwhile, I log into the Fiori application. All right. So I've shared my screen again, and now we will be doing some steps on SAP Fiori or SAP on a web browser. So you can see the extension is already installed on browser, and this is required, and this is the prerequisite in order to automate the SAP Fiori application on browser, right? And so this is a landing page that we have. And what we would be doing is how to capture the elements on a web page and how to navigate from one screen to another. So I have a test XAML files. I have created a test XAML file where we will be creating some steps how to. So before using any activity that includes click or anything else, right? We should be using use application browser because that's the scope that is needed in order to use any of the UI activities that we have, be it a click activity or type into or get text or anything else, right? So this is always needed. So so there are two options, right? We can either indicate the application in here, or we can drag the screen directly from object repository. So these are the screens that we have right on the object repository. But since I'm using, we will be doing it on login, right? So we can drag and drop the login one as well. So this will be getting the connection name from the config file. Since as a part, but if I do this, I will have to uh, pass the library as well. I mean the config file as well. So instead of doing this, we will be indicating the target on the screen, and then once we do this, it will select the application, which is the browser as a whole, right? And we want to automate SAP Fiori on this particular browser. So I'll just click on select, and then it will take the browser URL by default, and then you can maybe change it to get it from a variable or a config file, or maybe from an asset from orchestrator. So that can be changed. Uh, but as a part of this demonstration, the idea is to show you how we can capture the elements on a web page to automate SAP Fiori. Right. So since the application or the browser is selected, the next step is to maybe click on the login part. Since I have already saved the password, so that we don't have to type in the password. We don't want the bot to type in the password. We just simply want it to click on login, right? So we will be doing the click and indicate in Fiori login. So when I click on this, it will ask me to identify the element that needs to be clicked, right? As you can see, it has identified different places in the web page, but I want the bot to type in or click on this particular button, right? When I click this, when I select this, it will capture the selectors that are there. And it is again asking me to capture one more element, which is the target element. So the target element helps the anchor element. So anchor element helps the bot to capture the selector or identify the selector in a more robust way. So if I select change password as an anchor, so it will always look for this change password and the target, which is log on right next to it. So I'll choose change password as an anchor. So as you can see, we have two different selectors. One is for target and another is for anchor. So for target, we have different IDs, tags, and all the different selector values. So you can change it or you can make it dynamic if you think something can be changed, right? Maybe let's suppose and we have some values in here which can change, some numeric values which can be changed. We can make it dynamic by using asterisk sign, so that everything is, or a wildcard, so that it will be considered. It will consider everything else which is there, which might occur there in the near future, right? And then so this is the fuzzy selector that we are checking. We can also have a strict selector if required. And when you click on strict selector, we only see two, I would say, elements for this particular selector. But as of now, I think the fuzzy selector is working fine. So this should work. And if not, if you don't want to use fuzzy selector, you can maybe go ahead with strict selector and then use UI Explorer to create a more robust selector. If you think the application, the selector will not change that frequently. Right. When I click on UI Explorer, it will show up this screen where you can manually select the information or the elements or the items by yourself. So AA name is something which will display on the web page on that button. So you can select this if you want to use the class or anything else, right? So based on uh, what application you are using, it is always recommended to use a dynamic selector, right? So this will work fine because this is pretty stable. This particular button is pretty stable and it won't change. And once you make the changes in the selector, when you click on validate, it will check whether the selector is fine or not. And when you click on highlight, it will highlight that element just to make sure that yeah, the selector is working fine. And when I click on save, it will just capture this and it will add it in the workflow. So it will click on log on. So anchor, right? So if you check, so this is about the target. And now we have anchor as well. So we can again check whether the anchor element is fine or not. And it looks good. I'll just click on confirm and then it will simply uh, save the selectors, right? And when talking about the properties for click and type into, so as you can see, initially we discussed about the input mode. So there are different types of input mode, which includes hardware events, simulate, Chromium API, Windows messages. So simulate is something which is recommended for background automations so that it can run in the background. You can also use Chromium APIs. It is also works in the similar way. And it is the recent feature which was added, I think, in the last few releases only. And then the other part of best practice is you should always be use this wait for page load, because sometimes what happens is when the page is loading, even before the page start loading, the bot captures those elements, and it can happen where the application or the network is slow, right? So you should always be using interactive as a part of best practice, so that whenever the bot find that the web page is loaded to an extent where it can interact with the web page, then only it will click on that element. Otherwise, if the web page is not loaded completely, and if the bot tries to maybe click or type in, it will fail. There are very good chances that it might fail. So we should always be checking this one as an interactive. All right. So that's it. And there is also a new addition on the modern design uh, activities, which is verification, right? So what verification does is it basically checks whether the element which is highlighted or the step that the bot is performing is correct or not. You can either remove this if not required, and if you think that the verification is needed in order to check whether the bot is actually doing the step correctly or not. So you can have the verification there as well. But in this case, I think so this is not required. So when I click on this, when we will run this, we expect the bot to click on login, right? And so let's quickly do this. So if you are already familiar with UI automation, I think this might not add a lot of value to your experience, but if this is something which you have not done earlier, I think this will give you an idea how any application on browser can be automated, including SAP Fiori. Right. So it has highlighted the log on and it will click on this and then yes. So I think that's the password that I have is that I saved is not correct, but this is how it logs in. It clicks on this one. So it has stopped the execution as well. It just clicked on login and that was it, right? So that's about the automation part of SAP Fiori. And I think now we can check the questions that we have on the chat. And
Do you want me to read those to you?
sure.
Okay, the first one is from Vital. Do we have any inbuilt connectors available for SAP Fiora application like we have for Microsoft Office 365 or Salesforce?
Right, right. So there is no inbuilt, I would say, package as such, and even on the integration service, we don't have any connector that is available for SAP Fiori. We do have some SAP connectors that are available, but I guess those connectors are not for SAP Fiori. They
Okay,
actually connect with the SAP backend.
thanks. And then the next question is SAP Fiori automation using UiPath is similar like any general web automation, or are there any specific differences?
So it's mostly similar with any general web automation that we do. The only difference might be that since you're working on a SAP application, you will need to follow the best practices as per SAP automation, right? Because and it is in general with any web automation as well. But when we are doing SAP Fiori automation, you can use some of the activities that are there for SAP automation and which comes under uh, UI automation activities itself. And let me just. So you see, these are some of the activities which we use in SAP GUI automation, right? But a stable cell scope and some of the other activities can also be used in SAP Fiori automation. So this is not limited to SAP GUI. You can also use this activity in SAP Fiori, which will make your automation way more easier as compared to the other ones, like table extract or something. This is recommended. As also we also covered this in the slides, right? So otherwise, it's all similar with general lab automation.
Okay, and if you have any follow-up questions and want to unmute yourself, feel free to ask those. Okay. The next question is, do we have multi-login features available for SAP Fiora application like we have SAP ECC desktop application?
Right, right. And I think this is where you can maybe use, so since how we manually access a different, uh, I would say different windows under same login, right? So you can use different tabs or different windows in the browser itself to access multi-login, right? So you can have one browser with a different login and then another browser with different login. If you want to do something at the same time with different logins, right? And if you want to access different windows within the same session, you don't want to maybe close and the existing Windows session. You can open a new window and then do the automation there, and then just make sure that you attach that particular window when that steps are being performed. So so there's you can so there's no direct activity available, but yeah, you can do some workaround to achieve the same in SAP Fiori.
Okay, thank you. And then the last question I have is, what are different challenges we face during SAP Fiora automation? Do we face any performance issue on portal? In such cases, how is RPA handling the synchronization?
Right, right. And as per our experience, we have not seen any challenges as such. It's just about following the best practices, using the retry mechanism and the try catch, and then using element exist. If uh, uh, if even whenever we're doing the manual steps, right? If it is taking a lot of time to load that any something the data on the web page, we use element exist. We use retry mechanism. If it takes a lot of time after the timeout as well, it is not loading, right? So I think this happens with any other application, and then it's just about how we handle that exception, how we handle that particular situation where we might have to use a try catch, or we have to use element exist in order to continue with the flow and not let the bot fail at any given point of time without knowing why it failed. So
Right. And that's all the questions I have in the chat. Again, if anybody wants to ask any other questions, just unmute yourself. Feel free to ask. Yeah, Mish, I think that's it for the questions.
All right. Thank you everyone for joining today's session. We have a lot of content when it comes to SAP automation on UiPath, so feel free to reach out to us and then we'll be happy to help. Thank you so much for attending today's session.
Yeah, thank you, Pankaj. Thank you, Amish, for
Thank you.
presenting.
Thanks. Bye.
Hey.
thank you, Dan. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.